before it pushes into central and southern Scotland by dawn. And the cloud and the rain will keep the temperatures up into the teens in many spots. But the far north of Scotland stays clear of the rain, and it will be a cooler start to the day here. Actually, the north of Scotland sees the best of the weather on Wednesday. Sunny spells and feeling warm in places, but slow-moving area of rain across central Scotland. A lot of low cloud here will make it feel on the cool side. Northern Ireland seeing some heavy showers. Northern England, slow-moving showers as well. Tricky driving conditions. Further south, some lively downpours also across central and southern England as well as Wales, but these will move through with a bit more of a pace because of a stronger breeze. Now, the showers and the longer spells of rain tend to ease overnight. Thursday starts off relatively dry in many places before further rain in the west later. Then it turns increasingly windy.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome once again to On the Money, where we're focused on the UK's cost of living crisis, helping you to beat the squeeze. I'm Liam Halligan, and for the next hour, we're talking about how the business world has responded to that crunch vote among Tory MPs yesterday. The Prime Minister survived, of course, but ongoing political uncertainty has seen the pound fall, which makes imports more expensive, worsening that cost of living crisis. We're also covering ongoing travel chaos, while talking to a Hull-based manufacturer who builds wooden cabin holiday homes. On the Money, after the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
A very good afternoon to you. It's just 1 minute past 1. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date on GB News. The Prime Minister's asked his cabinet to find further ways to cut some of the costs to the public and the businesses that we run, as the Prime Minister vowed to deliver on what matters to the British people. He said the government is focusing on COVID recovery, tackling inflation and rising energy prices. Boris Johnson thanked his ministers for their support during last night's vote, where 148 Conservative MPs said they didn't have confidence in the Prime Minister.
Thank you, by the way, everybody, for all your good work yesterday, because which was a very important day, because we're able now to draw a line under the issues that our opponents want to talk about, and we're able to get on with talking about what I think the people in this country want us to talk about, which is what we are doing to help them.
The Conservative MP, Greg Smith, who voted in favour of the Prime Minister, told GB News the government needs to focus on the priorities of the people and not itself.
Last night, 60% of the parliamentary party, which is a decisive margin, uncomfortable as the 40% is a decisive margin. The parliamentary party now needs to rally behind the Prime Minister, accept that result, and get on with doing the things we were elected to do. Let's not tear each other apart. Let's have the debate on exactly how we are delivering for the British people, not about personalities.
Polling expert Sir John Curtis told us Boris Johnson's lost public support.
Yesterday morning, in the wake of the announcement that the vote was going to take place, they found 60% of people saying that the Prime Minister should resign. That's exactly the same as what the polls were saying in the immediate wake of the publication of the Sue Gray report.
Well, the DUP MP, Sammy Wilson, says he's surprised at the number of people who voted against Boris Johnson at the confidence vote yesterday.
But I just hope now that the vote's been taken, people have had a chance to have their say, and that we now get focused on the things that the government should be doing. It's an internal issue with the Conservative Party, so it's really none of my business, you could argue, but it is some of my business when it distracts from the kind of things which my constituents send me here to do to encourage the government to act on.
3/4 of UK consumers say the cost of food is a major future concern. The Food Standards Agency say the number of people using a food bank has jumped from 1 in 10 to nearly 1 in 6 since last year. They say 22% of those surveyed in March skipped meals because they didn't have enough money to buy food. Russia's defence minister says 2 Ukrainian ports, which were seized by Russian forces, have been demined and are ready to resume grain shipments. It's after Ukraine accused Russia of stealing vital grain supplies. That's something the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken believes is credible. Moscow claims the lack of grain shipments is due to Western sanctions. International food agencies have warned that without Ukraine's grain, the effect on food security globally could be catastrophic. Major General Chip Chapman told us Russia's using Ukraine's grain as a political tool.
They are weaponising grain supplies as a means of trying to get leverage over Ukraine in the international community, ultimately. And we must, in my view, we've got to hold the line and support Ukraine and not weaken in a sort of appeasing moment saying you've got to go for a ceasefire, Ukraine, because food prices are going up.
Abusers who strangle or intentionally affect their victims' ability to breathe in an attempt to control or intimidate them now face up to 5 years in jail. It's a new offence called non-fatal strangulation, and today it comes into force in England and Wales as part of landmark domestic abuse legislation. It's also going to apply to British nationals who are overseas. The Domestic Abuse Commissioner says the new offence marks a significant step forward to protect domestic abuse victims. The government's chief scientific advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, has received an honour at Buckingham Palace for helping to lead the UK's battle against coronavirus. Sir Patrick was originally knighted in the 2019 New Year's Honours list. He's now become a Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath. It's an order which recognises the work of senior military officials and civil servants.
I think Britain did some fantastic things during the pandemic. The science was remarkable. The data that was coming out that allowed other countries to see what was happening to the infection was used everywhere, right the way across the globe. The vaccines work was instrumental in terms of getting a vaccine out right the way across the world that saved countless lives.
This is GB News, and I'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's return to Liam for today's On the Money.
And coming up on the money today, Boris Johnson won his vote, but with fewer Tory MPs backing him than expected, there's more political uncertainty on the horizon. Already hobbled by post-lockdown supply chain issues and spiralling inflation, what do British businesses think of the ongoing drama at Westminster? Plus, the Platinum Jubilee celebrations already seem a long time ago. But did our national celebrations give UK businesses a boost? And to what extent does the monarchy help corporate Britain more generally? We hold a detailed discussion. And each day On the Money features an in-depth Money Talks interview. Today we meet the boss of Victory Leisure, a proud Yorkshire-based company that makes wooden holiday homes, and very nice too. We talk staycations, supply chain issues and the use of new technology to build a very traditional product. That's later in the show. And as ever, I want your questions, opinions, ideas. What do you think of the issues raised in today's On the Money? How do they impact you? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll read out some of your messages later in the show, so stay with us. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and you're On the Money. Now, Westminster, the country and the financial markets too are still digesting last night's political news.
Therefore, I can announce that the Parliamentary Party does have confidence.
It was a close vote, much closer than Boris Johnson's allies had hoped for, with over 40% of Tory MPs declaring no confidence in the Prime Minister. And that suggests there's more political instability ahead. Yesterday morning, when it emerged that Boris Johnson faced that no confidence vote, stocks and shares in London and the pound rallied, with investors welcoming the prospect of more political clarity. But since this too close for comfort result, the prospect of yet more political paralysis means the pound has lost ground. Investors are losing confidence in the UK, both economically and politically, it seems. Now, criticism of Boris Johnson's leadership is expected to continue, with legislation blocked even by his fellow Conservative MPs. Having endured lockdown and now ongoing supply chain issues, this is always going to be a tough time for British businesses. Firms everywhere, from manufacturers to the restaurants and bars, they worry about everything from regulation and tax to labour shortages and that supply chain inflation. But with ministers, MPs and the opposition distracted by political drama, business is bracing itself for new waves of uncertainty, and that's our On the Money question today. What do business leaders think of ongoing Westminster psychodrama? And before we consider that important issue, let's just have a recap on the very latest developments in this fast-moving Westminster story. Tom Harwood, our GB News political correspondent, of course, joins us live from Westminster. Tom, what's the latest? I'm hearing about Conservatives declaring big tax cuts in the pipeline to try and woo the electorate.
Well, that certainly was a line from Cabinet, which was held this morning, with Boris Johnson trying to rally the troops, saying that, number one, there needs to be a modernisation of the National Health Service, something that had been in the pipeline for some time. This announcement today, something that Cabinet focused on, trying to modernise the way that the health service runs, use the money, the enormous amount of money that is being spent on it, more effectively. But yes, tax cuts too, also featuring in the preamble to Cabinet, with the Prime Minister saying that taxes do need to come down. This, to some extent, is off the back of the multitude of reasons. There were 148 votes of no confidence in the Prime Minister last night, 41% of his parliamentary party. And, of course, it wasn't all about Partygate. Not every Conservative MP feels that cake or wine or cheese or beer is the biggest issue in the world. There is some real discontent within the Parliamentary Conservative Party about the direction of the government, about whether or not the government is staying the course, if it is too easily forced into U-turns by pressure groups, opposition parties, or indeed the media. So to some extent, the government, the Prime Minister, feels that one way to get his ship back on the straight and narrow is to some degree, govern more conservatively, try and win over his Conservative colleagues with perhaps an abandonment of this high tax agenda that we have seen, the highest tax burden in 72 years that we are now living under, and potentially dangling some tax cuts for us in the future. However, one big caveat to that, we haven't heard the detail. So whilst it's all very nice for the Prime Minister to woo his cabinet with the prospect of tax cuts and saying he'd very much like taxes to come down, that is indeed what he and the Chancellor have been saying for some time. And really the proof of the pudding will be in the eating.
Briefly, Tom, there's some big elephant traps down the road for the Prime Minister, not least those two by-elections on the 23rd of June, Honiton and Tiverton of the West Country, Wakefield up there in the red wall. He's odds on to lose both those by-elections and the Privileges Committee, more Partygate investigations. In his wildest dreams, let's say Keir Starmer himself falls foul of the COVID lockdown procedural thought police. Can Boris Johnson pull this back from the brink? Can the political Houdini fashion one last escape?
The political Houdini is a wonderful way to put it, because, of course, Boris Johnson's career has been a rollercoaster of ups and downs, coined the greased piglet by David Cameron, someone who's managed to squeak out of innumerable scrapes. It does seem that we cannot write this man off, although it's a very tricky path to navigate. As you rightly say, these two Conservative seats up for by-elections on the 23rd of June. Now, there are some specific local factors when it comes to these seats of impropriety of the members who have given up those seats, and that might well play into those results. The Conservative Party may well claim, were they to lose those seats, that they're not representative of the country at large, given the particular impropriety of the members who have left those seats. It's always an uphill struggle also mid-term. However, looking at some of the polling that has come up, particularly around Wakefield, there was a YouGov poll last week which showed an enormous swing to the Labour Party, a 20-plus point lead for the Labour Party in that seat. If that's the kind of result that happens, it'll be much harder for the government to claim that this is Westminster psychodrama, because, of course, there will be concrete results from people, the actual voting public, and that is going to be harder to ride. But, of course, the Privileges Committee as well, looking over whether or not the Prime Minister may have misled the House. Of course, it would have to not be inadvertent. He would have to have deliberately misled the House. This committee will be peering into the mind of the Prime Minister. It'll be a tricky thing to do. We're not expecting that in the next month. It may well be until September that we hear them come back, and that might well be another point of danger for this Prime Minister. But given the global affairs that we have seen go on across the course of this last 2.5 years, that the Prime Minister has been in post. Whenever it seemed to be a particularly dangerous moment, something else has come along. COVID seemed to be going pretty poorly, then the vaccine rollout went spectacularly. Partygate came along, but then the Prime Minister won plaudits for his handling of the Ukraine crisis. It's impossible to say what rabbit may next be pulled out of this hat, but one thing's for certain, it won't be boring.
Tom, we've had squealing piglets, roller coasters, Houdinis, rabbits. No metaphor unmixed when it comes to Harwood and Halligan. Tom Harwood there, GB News political reporter. Now, responding to that bombshell result last night, the Prime Minister's been out and about this morning, putting on a brave face for the cameras. This is what he said. Today, I pledge to continue delivering on priorities. We're on the side of hard-working British people, and we're going to get on with the job. But what do the public really think? Are the majority in agreement with those 2 in 5 Conservative MPs who voted against their own Prime Minister? Now, in 2017, Boris Johnson held his Uxbridge and South Ruislip seat by barely 5,000 votes. That was the smallest majority of any sitting Prime Minister since 1924. Boris Johnson's majority rose to almost 7,000 in the 2019 general election, but that's still within the danger zone, according to some pollsters. So we sent our London reporter, Alice Porter, to check out the public's reaction to last night's vote in Johnson's own West London constituency.
Has been a very safe Tory seat ever since it was created in 2010. And I think it's important to stress that even if the Prime Minister had lost last night's vote, he still would stay on as the MP for Uxbridge and Ruislip. But even amongst some of his most loyal supporters that I've been speaking to today, many of them have also been recognising that perhaps, given last night's votes, with so many Tory rebels going against the Prime Minister, that perhaps his political days are numbered. This is what they said to me.
in the beginning, when he started, he was doing some good things, but now he's doing a lot of mistakes. And I think this COVID or this lockdown party was the last mistake for me. He should be what's the word? Dismissed.
I think it's very doubtful that he can survive this. I really do, because he, there's too many voting against him for him to be a credible leader anymore. The party's obviously disunited at the moment. And
I think he let the country down, and at the time that everyone who stayed at home, and they were trying to protect each other by isolating themselves, he was partying. And a lot of people, they say, okay, vaccination and everything, but that's not all. He just let people down completely, because he was encouraging people not to go out, but at the same time he was partying. And it's just unbelievable.
So Boris Johnson's still got your vote?
Always. If they try and get him out, I will not vote at all. I won't vote for Lib Dems, Green Party, Labour, definitely not Labour anyway, or even Tories then.
There were some people in Uxbridge who were speaking to me this morning. And so you've got quite a range of views there. But I think one thing that actually really struck me when I was speaking with quite a few of them is many supported Boris Johnson on a sort of national scale and support him as a Prime Minister. But a lot of them were frustrated with him as a constituency MP. And I think some of that is down to the fact of the difficulties of when you have a Prime Minister who's also your local MP. And many of them sort of feel he's not involved with local issues, that he's not been to hustings, and quite frustrated with that. And I think that could be something that could come back to bite Boris Johnson in the ballot box. I mean, it's a couple of years until we've got a general election, so in some ways that very much goes in his favour given the events over the last 24 hours. But I think it's important to stress that speaking with the people here, it's important not to forget your local constituents, because it could come back to bite you in the ballot box.
Bite you in the ballot box and other sensitive political areas. Alice Porter there in Uxbridge and South Ruislip, Boris Johnson's constituency, where he has just a 7,000 odd vote majority. This is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. After the break, we will be hearing from those business owners across the UK, getting their take on this confidence vote on Westminster's ongoing psychodrama. Stay with us. You're On the Money.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Boris Johnson won that vote of confidence last night on his leadership, but only with a narrow 211 votes. voting for and 148 against, which Sir Graham Brady announced at that 1922 committee meeting last night. But what does this close result mean for business? Firms everywhere, from manufacturers to the restaurants and bars we frequent, they worry about everything from regulation and tax to labour shortages and supply chain inflation. And with MPs, ministers and the opposition distracted by political drama, business is bracing itself for new waves of uncertainty. So we're asking, what do business leaders think of this ongoing Westminster psychodrama? It's a pleasure to be joined as ever by Christopher Nieper. He is the CEO of David Nieper Fashion up there in Alfriston in Derbyshire. Christopher, you're always welcome on the show. Great to have you with us. Michael Kill is the CEO of the Nighttime Industries Association. And in the studio, Louise Oliver joins me. She is Chartered Financial Advisor at Pearsfield. Oliver, friend of the show, great to have you with us. Let's go first to Christopher Nieper. Christopher, you are a manufacturer of some repute. Your family-owned company, David Nieper, is one of our leading mail-order manufacturers, particularly of women's clothing. You run a very high-end operation up there in Derbyshire, which I've been privileged to visit in the past. What did you think of last night's no-confidence vote? What do you think of the fact that it was a lot closer than lots of people expected?
Liam, thank you for that very generous introduction. I am indeed a friend of On the Money and the programme that you're doing. Look, this confidence vote is quite a shock in the world of politics, but you have to remember that business works despite politics, not because of politics. And I think in areas like this, I mean, we are one of these absolute swing seats in the Midlands and North. And I think Johnson knows that if he doesn't win seats like this at the next election, then he's never going to win. So I just look back at the inaugural speech he made, which you're probably well aware of, in July 2019. And at that point, he said his intention was to be the Prime Minister for the whole of the United Kingdom. And that means uniting our country and answering at last the plea of the forgotten people and the left behind towns. And that was the origin of his levelling up agenda. And I think that's his number one route to being successful and re-establishing control of the agenda here. He also said it's time we unleash the productive power, not just of London, but of the South East and every corner of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So I would suggest that what he does now is to look and listen and learn. And I think the only way he's going to do this is to perhaps go over the heads of the Westminster bubble and start listening to the real world away from London. Because the only way we're going to get out of this cost of living crisis is by growing the economy. The only way we're going to get out of inflation is by growing the economy. And if elections are all about the economy, stupid, then he needs to help us to build the economy from within. So why doesn't he go for a smaller state and let the voters and businesses like us build the economy for him? And I think that's the way of regaining the initiative. And I've got several ideas of how he might do that, but I'm happy for you to come back to that in a moment if you wish.
Michael, you're from a different neck of the political and business woods than Christopher Nieper, if you like. You're CEO of the Nighttime Industries Association. Many of your members are restaurants, hospitality businesses, hotels, nightclubs, and so on. How are you feeling about ongoing drama at Westminster? How are you feeling about the business environment, this post-pandemic business environment? We're meant to be in the middle of a V-shaped recovery, more generally.
Well, as you know, and we've spoken many times, Liam, and you've kindly had me on the programme, listen, the pandemic has not been kind, particularly for the late-night economy. We've had a very, very difficult trading period, on and off, open and close, as you know. The challenge we have at the moment is we've walked from one crisis to another. And while we anticipate and got very frustrated by the way that many of our industry were dealt with during the pandemic, we're now, doubling down on some real challenges alongside many other industries. And as my counterpart will probably highlight, some of the biggest challenges around cost inflation. And we need the government to sort of double down on that and come away from this distraction and get on with the job in hand, support the businesses. Let's try and grow the economy. Let's encourage investment, look at growth, look at jobs. We've got some massive issues with regard to talent pipeline and skills that need to be sort of built up after a 2-year hiatus. So there's a lot of work to do here. It almost feels somewhat of a distraction. And, win or lose last night, I think we pretty much knew where things were going to go. We need to now focus and we need some action. We can't just have all of this talk and policy and manifest talk. We need people to step in, particularly the Cabinet and the Prime Minister, and deal with the things in hand. And cost inflation is the biggest killer, not only for the consumer, but also for businesses, particularly in our sector, but in many, many other sectors out there that needs resolved.
Louise Oliver's a chartered financial analyst. You talk to many companies, you talk to many of your clients about which companies they might invest in. It's interesting, isn't it? When Sir Graham Brady announced that vote of no confidence yesterday morning, the pound went up, stocks and shares went up. Oh, some political clarity, finally. We're going to wave away all these clouds of political uncertainty because Boris Johnson, for better or worse, is going to win decisively. Then when a rather indecisive result came out, the pound went down, stocks and shares went down. They don't like this uncertainty, do they, business leaders?
No, and don't forget this is being played out on the world stage. So the world is looking in at us. And, of course, this is not good. Our forecast for economic growth isn't looking particularly good, and we lack leadership. So having spoke to some business leaders this morning, one of the words that's come through here is wearisome.
Wearisome,
they're weary of it. They just want the government to get on with dealing with some of the comments that, your guests have made today. They want them to grab the post-Brexit dividend. They've been far too slow on capitalising on that.
Some lower regulation, maybe, cutting fuel duty on household utility bills.
The cost of living crisis. So all of this is a complete distraction. What business want is some certainty, some confidence, in moving ahead with their individual businesses. So it's really not good. If Boris was managing a business, if he was a business leader now, he'd have gone a long time ago.
The shareholders wouldn't have it.
He's hanging in there literally by his shirt tail.
Investors like you would have put him out on his ear, right?
Absolutely, and he's hanging in there, and his shirt's usually hanging out anyway, isn't it? But he's on a knife edge. I mean, I think he needs to go. Speaking to some senior business people this morning about their reaction, they think he should go. One of them said we've got a buffoon at the helm. This is Graham Doddridge. He's an international business entrepreneur in branding.
These are not natural opponents of the Conservative Party, these people, are they?
None of them are this morning. I spoke to a leisure entrepreneur. He says it's time for him to go. He's got no integrity. You can't be a leader without integrity. The two go hand in glove. So I feel he'll limp on. Be interesting to see what happens after he's met with, the ministers and see what they have to say. But, it's not good news.
Christopher Neeper, going back to you, as I said, your family business, David Neeper, has been around for a long time in Alfriston in Derbyshire. You are a major employer in a small town, with all respect, in the Red Wall, if you like. Of course, while all this psychodrama is going on, there's going to be less ministerial bandwidth for legislation, less ministerial bandwidth for cutting regulation, for bringing forward the kind of initiatives that business leaders like you have been urging the Conservative Party to get on with for months and even years.
Well, you're right, but if Boris Johnson wants to stay around, and I think he has won this vote of no confidence. So at this point in time, he has the initiative. So it's in his hands, I think, to get on and do something. And if he's bold and decisive, maybe he can pull this and turn this around. We don't want further uncertainty in the world of business. So I would urge him now to turbocharge the economies of the Midlands and North, like here, to get on and give us this Brexit dividend, which has been promised. And the way to do that is to unlock this talent that we have all over these kind of towns. So I would ask him, please, to abandon the failed apprenticeship levy and replace it with a skills tax credit, so that all companies of all sizes, like ours, can train young people, can train all the skills which we need to get on. Honestly, the next decade is going to be dominated by a scarcity of skills, and it's all about skills. He should also consider the employability agenda, which we are running in school, which we're sponsoring for 800 secondary school pupils. And I'm pleased to say that we're running at half the level of unemployment here as a result of that. Almost every child has found a job or an apprenticeship or a place of further and higher education. And that, for example, will reduce youth unemployment in a former coal mining town like this by half. I also think he could reverse the NI thing, and he could forget business rates. These kind of initiatives would surely boost the economy because the confidence is here. We can do it.
Indeed, Christopher Nieper. Michael, briefly from you, if I may, what's your 30-second elevator pitch to Boris Johnson to move the agenda on from the parliamentary pyrotechnics to reassure business leaders like you and your members that he gets it?
He needs to end the uncertainty, as quite rightly said. I think some of the challenges out there and cost inflation for business, while we focused on consumer and disposable income proposition, which I don't believe has gone far enough, we need some focus on business. And many of the industry leaders are asking for a VAT cut back down to 12.5% to give us that lead and that opportunity, because we will bounce back very quickly, but we do need that leg up as we start to see the support come away. And we also need the expansive nature of being able to trade further. So we need to look at deregulation and the easements in licensing and planning to ensure that we can take up these opportunities quickly and effectively to encourage investment, growth and jobs.
Briefly, Louise Oliver, do you think he can do it?
I'm not so sure, Liam. He needs to get rid of the bureaucracy, support our businesses, skills coming through. I spoke to a business leader last week. He spends 40% of his time on supply chain issues. He never used to do that. So the whole thing is about business, because those are the businesses will get us out of this mess.
Thanks for the discussion. We've got to end it there. A little bit squeezed for time today, but Christopher Nieper of David Nieper Fashion up there in Alfriston in Derbyshire, Michael Kills, CEO of the Nighttime Industries Association, and indeed Louise Oliver of Piercefield Oliver Financial Analyst. Great to have you all having this discussion. This is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Coming up, today's Money Talks interview is with a Hull-based manufacturer taking the holiday home industry by storm. James Doyle's the CEO of Victory Leisure Homes, and we'll be discussing a new technology that's helped to boost his business. But first, the GB News headlines with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon, it's 1:33. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date on GB News. The Prime Minister has told his cabinet the government will deliver tax cuts to help with economic growth, vowing to focus on what matters to the public. Boris Johnson thanked his cabinet for their support after he saw off a vote of confidence in his premiership, where 148 Conservative MPs did not back the Prime Minister.
Thank you, by the way, everybody, for all your good work yesterday, because which was a very important day, because we were able now to draw a line under the issues that our opponents want to talk about, and we're able to get on with talking about what I think the people in this country want us to talk about, which is what we are doing to help them.
3/4 of UK consumers say the cost of food is a major concern. The Food Standards Agency says the number of people using a food bank has jumped from 1 in 10 to nearly 1 in 6 since last year. They say 22% of those surveyed in March skipped meals because they didn't have enough money to buy food. The founder of the far-right group National Action has been jailed for 8.5 years. Alex Davies was found guilty last month of being a member of the organisation after it was banned in 2016. In Ukraine now, fierce street fighting continues in Severodonetsk in the east as Russia steps up its drive to capture one of the largest remaining Ukrainian-held cities in the Donbass region. President Zelensky says despite being outnumbered, Ukrainian forces have every chance of fighting back in the region.
We have a difficult situation in the east. You know the situation in Severodonetsk. We are maintaining the situation. They outnumber us. They are more powerful. But, nevertheless, I think we have every chance to fight.
Anyone who uses Apple phones will be able to edit and even unsend text messages in a new software update to be released later this year. The company have also announced an update to Apple Pay, which allows people to split the cost of a purchase into multiple payments over a 6-week period. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound is 1.25 over the dollar. The pound is 1.172 to the euro. The price of gold currently stands at £1,478.77 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for real-time investment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
we embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back. It's 1:38 here on GB News TV, DAB+, digital radio and online. You're on the money. Now, over the weekend, street parties and picnics took place across the country, of course, as the Queen celebrated her Platinum Jubilee. And according to analysis by Barkley Card Payment, last week's celebrations gave the economy a massive boost. Restaurant and public transport spending was up some 40% on the same week in 2021. With pub and nightlife spending 74% higher. But in a general sense, how much does the monarchy boost the UK economy? It's an issue we did examine briefly during the Jubilee celebrations last week, but we thought it was worth reflecting on some more here on The Money. I'm joined now by economic and finance expert at the University of Salford Business School. Very good to see you. Now, the UK's early summer travel chaos, Mishan Saeed, rumbles on. Thousands of passengers are trying to return home from holidays overseas, have been left stranded. We'll come on to that. In general, I think that the monarchy, whatever you think of it, as a business case, it's pretty much open and shut. It cost about £87 million a year for the civil list, for wages, for travel, security, maintaining the properties and so on. And yet most analysts would say it generates billions of pounds when it comes to tourism, trade and travel. Do you agree?
Well, the argument should be balanced on two things, that the £87 million you mentioned, it isn't the cost. Half of this goes back to the renovation of the buildings, which are owned by the public. and that is negligible in terms of looking at the overall income generated by those very buildings. In greater sense, the British monarchy is worth approximately £103 billion in today's prices. Now, this worth alone outsurpasses many of the industries which we rely upon. Over and above, monarchy costs in terms of security £100 million. And again, this generates some controversy that should we spend this £100 million a year on the security of a family? The answer is yes, because monarchy in itself generates a lot of diplomatic power and soft power for the nation, which results in generation of approximately £2 billion international trade. So I think in grand scheme of things, monarchy is profitable. But the question is, do we need to see monarchy as a means to an end, or should we see the monarchy as an end itself? Because monarchy definitely results in binding the union and generating some positive social impact, which is much more important than simple economics.
That's very interesting, Zishan Saeed. So I think you're agreeing with me. Most economists would say when it comes to a straight business case, it really is open and shut. Of course, we spend taxpayers' money, tens of millions of pounds, as we've said, on the monarchy, security, travel, upkeep of the various buildings and so on. And yet the monarchy itself raises money through tickets to go and see those homes, through trade effects, as you've said. But you're also saying, aside from that financial case for the monarchy, there are kind of psychological effects, there are civic effects, there are effects on happiness, given that the vast majority of people in this country do seem to back the idea of a queen, a monarch, as our head of state.
Very, very true. And this is precisely what I'm saying, talking about. Because the cases against the monarchy are built on simple derogation or constitutional cases, where they say that no one should have access to money. However, they should look at these different things. UK is not a federation, and we need something that should bind us, that should make us happy, that should keep us united. And that's the price worth paying for having some singular force who can keep the country moving forward. Now, in terms of costs alone, £150 million in terms of international trade by those brands which are being backed by the monarchy. So that alone overcomes or fulfills the costs incurred by sovereign grant. So I think that's an open and shut case.
And of course, the monarchy, it strikes me, they are sensitive to accusations, concerns about overspending. The civil list, the number of people who are on the royal payroll, if you like, has reduced quite significantly in recent years. But this will be an ongoing debate, won't it, Zishan Saeed, as and when we have a new head of state, as and when we go into a new phase of our monarchy and this Elizabethan age passes?
Historically speaking, when any monarch passes away, that's the weakest point, and when somebody tries to replace the institution altogether. However, the way monarchy has reduced its overall cost and the number of the inner circle of the group member, and the way they have handled the racism allegations and other Prince Andrew's allegation, I think the British monarchy is right now the world's most accountable, versatile and dynamic monarchy. No other monarchy presents itself as such accountable as the British monarchy. We can access their accounts, we can read their accounts, and I think we should not demand more than this from any institution who's regulated so much by Parliament. And overall, last year, one of our colleagues at supply chain department, they looked at the role of monarchy in minimizing or uniting the nations when we had a supply chain crisis in terms of truck drivers. And they saw how did those statements coming out kept the nation calm. And I think that's more important than simple economics.
Very interesting, a debate that will no doubt go on. I'm grateful for the conversation. Zishan Saeed of the Salford Business School on the economic and indeed psychological case for the British monarchy. Now, the UK's early summer travel chaos does rumble on. Thousands of passengers trying to return home from holidays overseas have been left stranded following cancelled flights. Many people say they're struggling to get help from their airline with customer helplines down. And now UK airports are claiming they can't cope with the number of stranded passengers who've had flights cancelled but have been asked to wait. Well, with more on what's been happening, our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis joins us now from Birmingham Airport.
Yes, this is the next chapter in this travel disruption, this book of travel chaos that we've all been reading and hearing so much about recently. Of course, back in Easter, we saw this become a big problem. Everybody was hoping it was going to stay an Easter problem. It became a problem, of course, around the Platinum Jubilee bank holiday weekend. But now, as people have started to go back to school, as the half-term holiday has ended, some people are finding themselves stuck out in places like Turkey, in places like Spain and other various different destinations across Europe. Thousands of cancelled flights, thousands of people that have been stuck abroad, hundreds of cancelled flights. Of course, recently we've heard Grant Shapps say that this is really an airline issue, an aviation industry issue. There's only so much that can be done from the government. They've already said that they've funded about $8 billion in propping up the aviation industry during the pandemic, and they are really putting it back on the industry. The industry is saying that we need more help. Labour saying that the government have lost control of this issue. Of course, where I am today at Birmingham Airport, it's not just a Birmingham Airport issue, it's not just a Heathrow issue, it's in most of the airports across the country. Some people that have found themselves stuck abroad right now, they're finding that they can't get through to anyone on the helpline numbers that are being given to them. They're also finding that at the help desks they aren't getting much joy either. So now as we look ahead to the summer period, it's summer right now, but we haven't really hit that really big, that really fast moving period of summer holidays. People are starting to wonder, is it worth going away on holiday, and will they be able to get back from their holidays if they do go away?
Cue a big increase in staycations and UK holidays, Will, and why not? Will Hollis there, our East Midlands reporter, talking from Birmingham Airport. Time now for my daily in-depth interview series, Money Talks, and today's guest is James Doyle. He's CEO of Victory Leisure Homes, a Hull-based manufacturer which makes wooden lodges and luxury holiday homes. This family-run business has been successfully operating in the UK and Ireland since 2009. But in the last 18 months, Victory's invested in a new 200,000 square foot factory, hired more staff, launched a new product range and rolled out new construction techniques. Frankly, it's good to hear of a business doing well. And here to tell us more, let's meet James Doyle, CEO of Victory Leisure Homes, my latest guest on Money Talks. James, great to have you here in the studio. Congratulations, the business seems to be doing pretty well.
Yes, we've been fairly fortunate. We sort of took a view when the pandemic hit that we were going to invest in the future, and that was new technology, new people, new team, new product range, and the success of the business has been fantastic. I mean, we've quadrupled our production.
Wow.
And we're on track to employ over 550 people at the end of the year. And when we went into the pandemic, it was 160 people.
And that's all in and around Hull, Yorkshire?
All in and around Hull, yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, James? During the pandemic, during lockdown, of course, a lot of people, they couldn't work, a lot of businesses were furloughed, a lot of people stayed at home. But once we got into lockdown, a lot of manufacturing carried on, didn't it? There seemed to be exceptions made, as long as I'm sure you had all kinds of COVID restrictions, social distancing, safety measures, which you and your senior team had to manage. But a lot of our manufacturers ploughed on through.
Yeah, that's very right. We kept all our design teams. We had people delivering units out to the parks because the parks were still taking deliveries. So we were shut down for 3 months, and then when we reopened, the boom was just staggering, the demand for the products. And it's all around UK staycation, people wanting to holiday in the UK.
UK, and indeed you operate in the Republic of Ireland as well, as I understand.
Yeah, we sell product to Ireland.
So you are a business that's set to benefit, you are benefiting from this staycation trend. We just heard from Will Hollis. The guy's been on every day talking about travel chaos in recent weeks. A lot of people are thinking, you know what, I'm not going to go abroad, I'm going to stay in the UK, I'm going to go to a holiday park with a holiday home, keep it really simple.
Yeah, I mean, since the pandemic, there's been an additional 4.5 million people go on camping and caravanning holidays, and that's a 77% 8% increase, which is
Wow.
sort of staggering, really. And that's sort of set to continue. And I think people that have had a good holiday in the UK, it's now going to be part of their holiday portfolio every year.
Yeah.
And, you know, it might not be for 2 weeks, but it'll be for, you know, Monday to Friday.
Or
Friday to
half term,
Monday,
or
half term. And, I think if you can get the weather, I think there's some fantastic destinations in the UK.
So I would think that building a holiday home out of wood, it's a technology that's been around for years, decades.
Yeah.
But you're trying to change that, aren't you? Tell us about your new production techniques.
Yeah, so we build under Novus technology, which was designed by us, and it's our own exclusive way we build the product, and it's to make it more energy efficient. It's more aesthetically pleasing because we have a beadless wall system, so it doesn't necessarily look or feel like a lodge or a caravan when you're in it. And we're pushing on with that, and we think we'll be able to change materials in the future, look more buying locally as well, as opposed to always importing from the Far East. So we've really redefined what the product is, and that's sort of set us on a path of significant growth.
Timber prices are up, labour costs are up for skilled tradespeople, carpenters, electricians, I'm sure you use lots of them. How are those supply chain cost issues for you? Victory Homes, James?
No doubt we've faced significant headwinds in the supply chain, and controlling the cost base has been a challenge for all manufacturers. I think we've responded to that pretty positively. Like I say, looking at different materials, how can we build the product differently? We've got to attract the best talent, because a business is only good as the people that you employ. And so we've invested in those people. And we've had to keep pace on wage inflation, but we've done that. And I think if you pay people a fair wage, you'll get a fair day's work from them.
And you get the loyalty that you need to fulfil your order book. Now, are you selling your holiday homes mainly to holiday parks, or do you sell them to individuals?
No.
Can you stick one in your garden?
No, it's selling to trade, effectively two markets, the higher fleet market for the person going on a 2-week holiday, and then also the retail for people that want to go and buy a lodge or a caravan and live in that area for 8 to 10 months a year, or sometimes 12 months a year, depending on.
Can you Christmas in one of your holiday homes? Are they that warm?
For a residential.
You get quite cold in Hull.
It's a lot colder up north and down south here, yes. No, yeah, you can go at Christmas time, and I think nowadays with the residentials you can holiday all year.
And what's your general view of the business environment, James? Clearly your business is doing well. It's great to invite you on. Here's some good news. There's lots of doom and gloom out there. You know, you're a company there up in Yorkshire that's clearly taking people on. But what's your sense of the broader business environment?
Yeah, I think it's still a challenging environment. So it's not like, you know, you've always got challenges. I think inflation is a challenge for any business. You know, your credit control also. I think your people and keeping those at pace with this cost of living crisis is one of the biggest challenges.
Are good youngsters coming through?
Yeah, we take apprentices on, and we're doing more of that.
You can find good people.
We've got plans in place for our own apprentice academy, so we're going to train our own people.
And you find youngsters, they want to learn to be carpenters, electricians.
You've got to be robust in your recruitment process and make sure you get the right people with the right attitude. But they're out there, definitely.
So what's your one piece of advice to Boris Johnson to improve the business environment and to make business leaders like you less angry about ongoing psychodrama at Westminster?
I think for me, reduce the red tape, make it easy for people to do business. That'd be my advice.
Good advice. James Doyle, really good to talk to you.
Thank you,
CEO of Victory Leisure Homes. Our latest guest on Money Talks there. And you can listen to many of my Money Talks conversations on my Money Talks podcast or on the GB News YouTube channel or app. Let's bring a couple of your emails now on today's show. Rich says, if Boris is really doomed as they say, he should call an early general election, then remove the whip and take out as many MPs as possible with him. Crikey, Rich. That's pretty draconian, but myself and some GB News colleagues were making exactly the same prediction only this morning. Patricia says, I'm a business owner. I've planned for times like this and put a contingency in place. I've spoken to my staff about the worst case scenario. Well done, Patricia. And Alan says this country's economy will never pick up until the government drop their ridiculous net zero agenda. It's a common theme among GB News viewers and listeners. Thanks a lot for your emails today. It's all we've got time for. But tomorrow, I'll be joined by the government's Small Business Commissioner, Liz Barkley, with many small firms suffering from too much regulation, late payment issues and high taxation. We're here to help, talking about those issues that impact you. What questions do you have for the Small Business Commissioner? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk and let me know, and I'll put your queries directly to Liz Barkley live tomorrow lunchtime. But for now, this is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan. That was On the Money.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Dry and bright for many of us today, but not for all. There will be some showers in the south. However, away from the showers, it's going to feel warm in many places. One area of low pressure is moving away. Another one is approaching for later in the day. A deeper one is approaching for later in the week to bring a windy spell Thursday, Friday and Saturday. But in the meantime, in between these lows, a lot of cloud for many, especially for southern parts of the country where we've started off with some light rain and drizzle, and another area of cloud feeding into eastern parts of northern England. But Scotland sees plenty of sunny spells. Central parts of England also sunny spells, and where we get the sunshine, 22 Celsius is possible. Warm again also for western Scotland, but showers will form in places, and some more prolonged showery rain pushes in from the southwest through the evening. Now that spreads into Northern Ireland. Much of England and Wales sees a couple of hours of rain, heavy at times, before it pushes into central and southern Scotland by dawn. And the cloud and the rain will keep the temperatures up into the teens in many spots, but the far north of Scotland stays clear of the rain, and it will be a cooler start to the day here. Actually, the north of Scotland sees the best of the weather on Wednesday. Sunny spells and feeling warm in places, but slow-moving area of rain across central Scotland. A lot of low cloud here will make it feel on the cool side. Northern Ireland seeing some heavy showers. Northern England, slow-moving showers as well. Tricky driving conditions. Further south, some lively downpours also across central and southern England as well as Wales, but these will move through with a bit more of a pace because of a stronger breeze. Now, the showers and the longer spells of rain tend to ease overnight. Thursday starts off relatively dry in many places before further rain in the west later. Then it turns increasingly windy.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
we embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.